Hey, Matt.
Hey, Mike.
Would you like to podcast?
I would like to podcast.
Let us do that then. Welcome, everyone, to Hacking the Grepson. We are a programming/development podcast where we help you solve problems, even the problems that you didn't know that you were actually trying to solve. Today, we're going to talk about a phenomenon, I don't know if that's the right word, called the XY problem. And Matt is going to take us there. So fly, Matt, fly.
All right. Imagine, if you will, I will give a non-programming example. Imagine, if you will, that your child, your small child comes to you one day and says, "Hey, parental unit, do we have any bleach?"
Interesting query, young one.
Now, the easy answer to that is yes or no, depending on the answer, right? But they also might ask, where is the bleach? Where do we keep the bleach? Right. All of these questions are immediately going to spawn other questions in your head. And you're going to start wondering, why is my child wanting to know where the bleach is? Why? Hey, Dad, how do you get out blood stains? Right? Like, these kind of questions cause you concern. But if they say, hey, my friend is doing trivia and wants to know the answer to this, you're going to be a lot calmer, right?
Phew.
Setting context. This is a problem that it doesn't, by default, seem like it really fits into programming, but it does. And I think specifically it comes into play a lot when answering questions for people, which if you're in tech support, if you're mentoring someone, if you're helping someone problem solve, which we all do in software engineering, you're going to run into this. And XY problem is a communication problem. And basically what it is someone asks a question, but they don't really want the answer to that question. They're trying to solve some other problem. How does this actually say it? The question is about an end user's attempted solution rather than the root problem itself, right? Hey, Dad,
Right.
Do we have any bleach? Because I am making a chemical weapon versus, hey, I want to kill this patch of grass, right?
Right.
Hey, bleach isn't the right answer to that.
Right.
Hey, Dad, where's our flamethrower? Why? I want to start the barbecue. Oh, okay. You just need a match. Let me do that for you. Also, did you know there's a starter on the side of the barbecue? Oh, I didn't know that, right? What usually happens in practice is someone will come to you and say, hey, how's Dijkstra's algorithm work? Or something, right? Like they're asking you for a bit of knowledge that you might have, and you can answer that question. Mm-hmm. And then they'll go off and use it, but they were trying to use a searching algorithm to do sorting, right? And that was not the right thing. If they gave you the problem they were trying to solve and then gave you the solution, or then gave you the solution that they were trying to work towards and the problem they ran into with that, less of a problem. I have always phrased this as, let's talk about the premises before we talk about the solutions. But I like I only just learned that there's a term for this the other week.
Oh.
Because a guy at work was complaining about this problem and someone else came in and said, oh, that's the XY problem, and linked to a Wikipedia article. And I went, what? It has a name?
Everything has a name. Nothing is original. Yeah. So, Matt, yes, you gave I loved your opening situation with the bleach. That is a perfect example of this XY problem. Where I first came about this was most likely, not necessarily where I first saw it, but where I think it first crystallized for me was probably on a site like Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow, if you don't know, is a very popular tech question and answer site. People go on there and they ask questions about it, although it has expanded to basically any knowledge of the universe, not just tech. But it started at Stack Overflow, just people asking programming questions, and then people would come in and ostensibly answer them, hopefully. And then it just becomes a huge user-generated database of problems and solutions, hopefully. But as you said, a lot of people in tech, because tech is and programming is difficult, and there's a lot of things that people don't know and need answers to. It's, you know, it's a, if it were super easy and didn't need people to ask questions, everybody would be doing it. But that also means that people often come in, as the example they give on this site that I'm looking at. How can I echo the last three characters in a file name? For example, if you have like a Word doc, you might have like, you know, my document.doc. And, you know, the person answers their question and says, oh, well, you know, do this. But then they ask, wait, why three characters? What do you really want? Do you want the extension, like the file extension, which is usually the characters that come after the dot, like .doc or .xls or .jpeg? And the person responds, probably sheepishly, yes. And then the person answering says, oh, there's no guarantee that every file name will have a 3-letter extension. So instead, you should do this. So the XY problem is like the user wants to do X, which is find the file extension. They don't know how to do X, but they think if they do Y, they will figure it out. Uh-oh, they also don't know how to do Y. So then they ask for help with Y. So they're obscuring their original intention with a new intention. But as you do programming or anything long enough, you start to, you know, you get a lot of the same questions. You get a lot, you know, you get this database of knowledge in your head, and you know the things that you tried maybe, or that someone might try. And so you start seeing this a lot, and you notice it as this XY problem of like somebody wants to do X, but they're asking Y. I know another thing that came up when I first realized something about this is that people get really annoyed when people engage in this, i.e. they don't ask what their real intentions are, and instead they ask this other thing because it's kind of a bother to have to wade through the Y to get to the X. And I wanted to pose to you, Matt, like, why do you think that this happens? Why do people have the intention of, I mean, obviously with your child example in the bleach, they're trying to cover up why they need the bleach because they don't want you to know why they need the bleach because they would get in trouble for it. But the bleach is an innocuous question that they can get the answer to without revealing the bad part that they don't want you to know. But in tech, like, why wouldn't you just ask, how do I get the extension? Why would you ask, how do I get the last three characters of something? Like, why go through the hullabaloo?
I think it's a combination of things. I think almost in exact defiance of what you just said about people having to wade through the why, they're trying to save you time, right? You don't need to, I don't need to give you all this context. You don't need to worry about that. I just have this dumb question. I just need this one little thing answered, and then I can go off on my own. Right? So part of it is, I think, courtesy. But I think the real issue is insecurity. In tech, we all think we're very smart people. And in a lot of ways, most of us are. But don't forget, by definition, half of the world has less than average intelligence. And I think people are always worried that they're going to seem stupid. Hey, there's a really easy way to get the file extension, you idiot. Just use this library. I think people are trying to avoid that question, and so they just boil it down to like this one little. I'm not asking you to do my job for me. I know how to do it. I can't. I got the solution. I don't know how to do this one stupid thing. Can you just help me with that real quick? Which only ever leads to more problems. Almost never is that a good way to approach problem solving.
So you're saying that the person, their insecurity is it's making the problem solving take longer and obscuring the whole thing. So it's pointless to do that.
Yeah.
I think another side to this is the person who's asking, regardless of what their Y intention may be, to skip the X intention, often feels that the person that calls them on their Y intention, like you said, maybe trying to be helpful, maybe trying to like, because they know more or they understand maybe where the X is behind the Y, they're trying to help. They're trying to push through the morass or the chaff to get to the wheat. But I think the person on the other side can often feel like they're being well actually'd which is, my slangy term of like saying, oh, you think you know more than me, and you're trying to, I don't want to say mansplain, but,
But mansplain.
It's a form of mansplaining where you're like, hey, I asked you X, it's not Y. And the other person is saying, no, it's Y. You really mean to ask X. Like, I'm smarter. I understand what you're really trying to ask. And that can come off very haughty and confrontational. And so, it goes both ways, I guess, is what I'm saying.
I am of the neurotype where I require the context behind something. I need to understand the reasons in order to actually work on things. Or I start thinking of every possible edge case to what could be, how do you get the last 3 characters? Okay, well, it might be this kind of string, it might be that kind of string. Okay, it's this, well, what if it's in C? They didn't really ask what language, and I'll build an entire map. I need to understand it. Hey, I'm developing something in Python, and I want to get the file extension. Oh, use this library, right? And they could start with hey, how do you get the last 3 characters? Okay, well, you just, you can use a slice and do the ray notation -2, and it'll give you, right? Or -3, I guess it would be. And it'll give you that. But it's not really what you want.
Right. I just looked up XY problem on Wikipedia because I was curious where this came from. And at least according to Wikipedia, it said the term XY problem was implicitly coined by an Eric S. Raymond.
Oh, of C fame.
Yeah, in How to Ask Questions the Smart Way. How can I use X to do Y is a question, and the answer is if what you want to do is Y, you should ask that question without presupposing the use of a method that may not be appropriate. Questions of this form often indicate a person who is not merely ignorant about X, but confused about what problem Y they are solving and too fixated on the details of their particular situation. So I think to your point, any Y question that gets too granular without pulling back and seeing where that Y granular question may have come from, like you said, can very easily obscure the whole ecosystem, the whole extended universe around what their problem is. And it's you could just ask, how do I get the last 3 characters of a file name without tipping your hand as to why you're asking that. And someone could give you the answer, and you could go on about your day, and you might be okay. But you may just be delaying the inevitable that you really need to get to X. You just don't know that yet. And so, when people try to help you get through this XY problem, they're trying to do that for you. Just, as a social and even an ethical suggestion, try to do it in a polite way that doesn't impinge on the person's intelligence by acting as if obviously what you mean to ask is X. Because I think that's where the issue gets in that I was talking about before, that you feel patronized by labeling your quandary with this XY problem structure,
Yeah. Context is key.
Yes, it's also property. It's also field. It depends on what kind of data type you're using. Oh, sorry, that's a different episode. Okay, I think the XY problem is definitely a real thing that comes up. I've seen it plenty of times. I'm glad, Matt, you now have a label to put to this phenomenon that happens. But I think we've said enough about it. And so we're going to wrap up this episode. This has been Hacking the Grepson. If you want to find more episodes, go to hackingthegrepson.com. And until our next episode, we now return you to your regularly scheduled lives already in progress.